Elon Musk walks to the front and addresses the audience with a serious expression on his face. Today, I want to talk about something incredibly profound, 10 amazing facts about Jesus Christ that many of you may not know. We all know him as a central figure in Christianity, but beyond that, his life carries lessons and stories that have had a lasting impact even on the world we live in today. Let's start with the first moment that marked his public journey. Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. Now, you might wonder, why would someone who was sinless need to be baptized? Well, it wasn't about cleansing, it was about humility and obedience. He led by example, demonstrating what it means to be fully aligned with God's purpose. I find it interesting that Jesus, who could have claimed superiority, chose a path of humility. Next, there's the first miracle he performed, which occurred at a wedding. Imagine a wedding where the host ran out of wine. It could have been a disaster, right? But Jesus intervened, turning water into wine, not just any wine, but the best wine they had ever tasted. This shows something important. He cared about the simple pleasures in life and used his divine power to bring happiness to others, beginning his journey with celebration. Elon pauses, allowing the significance to sink in before continuing. Before Jesus began his ministry, he spent 40 days and nights in the wilderness without eating. He was alone, praying, and tempted, but he had no food or water. It must have been really hard, yet it was a significant period for him. He experienced temptations in the same way that we do. He had the opportunity to accept Satan's offers of power and wealth, but he chose not to. He continued to concentrate on his task. Consider how challenging it is to resist temptation when you are your most vulnerable. In today's world, many individuals lose focus over tiny distractions, but Jesus showed us what it means to be devoted to your goal even when everything around you is attempting to pull you away. Jesus had a strong love for the truth, and it is one of the things I admire most about him. He entered the temple, which is the holiest sanctuary in Jerusalem, on 2 occasions and witnessed merchants transforming it into a bazaar overflowing with greed. He was not discreet about it at all. He took action by driving them out and flipping over their tables. Although Jesus was known for his compassion and love, he displayed justified indignation in this instance. It was a strong message against corruption and greed, demonstrating that there are times when it is necessary to defend what is sacred. I see similarities today. People frequently turn things that should be pure or meaningful into commercial products. Jesus was not scared to confront that, and we should not be afraid to do so either. Then there was the day he met a man. He who had been blind since birth. This man had never seen the sun, but Jesus healed him and gave him back his sight. This narrative is fascinating, not only because of the physical miracle that it tells. It is what it represents. That the miracle was not only about seeing the world with your eyes, it was also about obtaining spiritual insight and recognizing the truth. It is comparable to the difficulties we encounter in our own life. We frequently fail to recognize what is truly important until we undergo a change in perspective. This is what Jesus did for this man and for many others. There was another occurrence that gave his closest disciples a chance to see who he really was. The Transfiguration is the name given to this event. Jesus climbed a mountain, and when he reached the top, his appearance altered right in front of Peter, James, and John. His face was bright like the sun, and his clothes were a brilliant white. They witnessed him in his divine glory, which was a glimpse of what was to come. However, in spite of all of this, Jesus led a life that was profoundly human. He was tempted in every manner, just like we are, yet he never gave in to those temptations. Take a moment to consider that. A person who faced every challenge, every difficulty, and every temptation, but nonetheless managed to be perfect. It serves as a reminder that even if we don't succeed, there is always a way to go forward. Next is the part of Jesus' story that is possibly the most tragic, his arrest, his crucifixion, and the reality that even in his most difficult time, he was deserted by the people who were nearest to him. His followers, who had been with him for many years, ran away. Peter, who had promised never to deny him, denied him 3 times. The most striking thing about this story is how human it is. It has to do with devotion, fear, and weakness. However, the most notable thing is that Jesus did not hold it against them. He let it go. In fact, while he was on the cross suffering, he prayed for the people who were crucifying him, saying, "Father, forgive them." This is the greatest example of forgiveness and love. And this is the most crucial thing. Jesus did not have to die. He was able to escape and dodge the cross. However, he did not. He made the decision to willingly offer up his life as a sacrifice for the sake of us. I think about that a lot, what it means to give oneself totally to a cause that is bigger than you are. And lastly, the crucifixion is not the conclusion of the story. Jesus came back to life 3 days after he died. The resurrection, which is the basis of the Christian religion, is what this is called. It is what demonstrates that he is divine, that he has triumphed over death, and that he has promised eternal life. It is a strong assertion that death does not mark the end. Before he ascended into heaven, Jesus made another promise: the Holy Spirit would arrive, and it did. The Holy Spirit gave his followers the strength to continue spreading his message. What began as a small group of people has grown into a worldwide movement that is still going strong today. To me, this story of Jesus is one of change, determination, and a sense of direction. It is about the strength of love, forgiveness, and sacrifice. Regardless of whether you see Jesus as the Son of God or just as a person who lived in the past, there is a lot we can learn from his life. These facts, which provide a brief overview of who Jesus was and is, can motivate all of us to live with greater purpose, compassion, and courage. Elon Musk pauses for a moment to think as if he is considering a deeper engagement. You know, what's truly fascinating. How the story of Jesus connects with the progress of humanity itself. It's hard to ignore the vast impact his teaching had on the world, on ethics, on how we treat each other, and even on how we approach innovation. For example, the belief in a rational God who created a world with order and structure. This inspired early scientists to pursue knowledge and discovery. Figures like Isaac Newton and Galileo were deeply religious. They believed that by studying the universe, they were uncovering the laws that God had set in place. It's interesting to think that the pursuit of science, what many see as separate from faith, was in part motivated by this desire to understand creation, something that stems from Christian philosophy. It's something I think about in my own work at SpaceX. We're trying to push the boundaries of what's possible to reach new heights, to understand more about the universe. In a way, that's an extension of the same curiosity that drove people to explore the mysteries of the cosmos centuries ago, believing there's a deeper order to things. As I've grown into the role of a leader, I've studied many different philosophies, and Jesus' teachings often stand out for their emphasis on service and humility. It's remarkable how he flipped the traditional ideas of power and leadership. In his time, leaders were often tyrants or rulers who lorded their power over others. But Jesus came with a radically different approach. He said things like, the greatest among you will be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be last. When I think about leadership, I realize that true influence isn't about control. It's about serving a vision bigger than yourself, inspiring others to do the same. That's what I try to do at Tesla and SpaceX. We build incredible machines, but ultimately, it's about leading people toward a better future. It's about understanding that wealth, power, and influence should be used not for self-gain, but to serve humanity. Elon gestures emphasizing the connection between selflessness and progress. Jesus taught people to care for the least among them, the poor, the sick, the outcast. Today, we face many challenges, from poverty to climate change, and those same teachings about compassion and service are just as relevant. It's easy to get caught up in profits or competition, but at the end of the day, it's about making the world better for everyone. Another powerful lesson from Jesus' life is forgiveness. Now, forgiveness isn't easy, especially when you're wronged. It takes strength, and it's something I think a lot about. In the tech world, in business, people hold grudges, seek revenge, and get trapped in a cycle of competition and hostility. But forgiveness frees you. It allows you to move forward. There was a moment when Jesus forgave the woman caught in adultery. The crowd was ready to stone her, but he told them, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. It was a moment that stopped the cycle of violence and judgment in its tracks. I think about that when it comes to how we treat one another. Today, whether it's in the boardroom, on social media, or in politics, I believe that if we can learn to forgive, we can solve a lot of the world's problems. It's not about being passive or letting things slide. It's about understanding that holding on to anger doesn't lead to progress. In fact, it can stop us from reaching our full potential as a society. As we move further into the age of AI and automation, I often find myself thinking about the concept of sacrifice. Jesus' ultimate sacrifice was his life given willingly to redeem others. Today, the idea of sacrifice might seem foreign in a world driven by convenience, efficiency, and individualism. But there's a deeper lesson here. For the future, as AI takes over more tasks, we're left to ask ourselves what will be our human contribution? What will give our lives meaning? I believe it will be our capacity to sacrifice for the greater good, to serve one another in ways that machines never could. Sacrifice isn't just about loss, it's about creating value for others, and that's something deeply human. People often ask me if I believe in God, and my answer is usually, I'm open to the possibility. I believe there are mysteries in the universe that science can't yet explain and perhaps never will. Jesus' life points to something beyond just the physical world as miracles. His resurrection, they suggest that there's more to life than what we can see or measure. I often think about this when we launch a rocket or explore new technologies. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what we know, but there's always more. The universe is vast, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface of understanding it. In a way, that's the beauty of science and faith. They both drive us to seek out answers. Two, the big questions. Elon Musk stands tall, his voice steady as he looks ahead. Jesus' life wasn't just about the past, it was about the future. His message of love, forgiveness, and sacrifice gives us a blueprint for building a better world. It's not just about personal salvation, it's about transforming society, creating a place where justice, mercy, and compassion are the norm. As we face the challenges of our time, climate change, inequality, the exploration of space, I believe we can take inspiration from the teachings of Jesus. He can use our knowledge, our technology, and our power to create a future that's brighter, more just, and more hopeful. It's not going to be easy, but the path has been laid out for us. In the end, the message of Jesus is about hope that no matter how dark things may seem, there's always a chance for redemption, a chance for renewal. And that's something we should all strive for in whatever field we're in. Elon Musk's gaze softens as he contemplates the path forward. One of the most significant questions we face as a species is whether we will stay rooted in morality as we advance in technology. With AI, robotics, and space exploration on the horizon, we are entering uncharted territory. As we push the boundaries of what's possible, the lessons from Jesus' life serve as a moral compass, guiding us not just to what we can do, but what we should do. Jesus' emphasis on love, compassion, and justice teaches us that technological progress must be paired with ethical responsibility. As we develop artificial intelligence, for example, we must ensure that it's designed to benefit humanity, not just the privileged few, but everyone. That's why ethics must be built into the foundation of these systems. Just because we can create something powerful doesn't mean it should be used without considering the consequences. The story of the Good Samaritan, for example, reminds us that we're all responsible for one another, regardless of our background or status. In a world where I could be used to widen gaps and inequality, we need to ensure that technology doesn't drive us apart, but brings us closer to the vision of love and justice that Jesus laid out. He pauses, letting the gravity of this moment sink in. It's about building a future where no one is left. Behind a future where technology isn't just about efficiency, but about enhancing the quality of life for everyone on this planet, and maybe one day on other planets too. Another theme that stands out from Jesus' teachings is the pursuit of justice. He was always standing up for the oppressed, calling out the hypocrisy of those in power. It's a lesson that resonates today as we see corporations, governments, and leaders making decisions that affect millions of lives. In my work at Tesla, SpaceX, and even with ventures like Neuralink, we are constantly at the intersection of ethics and innovation. Take climate change, for instance. Tesla isn't just about creating electric cars, it's about pushing humanity towards sustainable energy. It's about justice for the future generations who will inherit this planet. If we don't take responsibility now, if we don't act with justice in mind, we're condemning them to a future we wouldn't want for ourselves. When I think of Jesus driving the money changers out of the temple, it reminds me that we too have to take a stand, whether it's against environmental destruction, social injustice, or economic inequality. There comes a point where we must act boldly and with conviction. As we look at the story of Jesus, one thing is clear: he embodied the idea of self-sacrifice for the greater good. In today's world, where the pursuit of material wealth and personal gain is often glorified, his example of putting others first is a stark contrast. I often reflect on this in my own life. Sure, we've built companies that have become incredibly successful, but the goal has never been just about making money. At Tesla, we've had moments where we could have chosen short-term profits over long-term sustainability, but we didn't. We made sacrifices. That's because the mission was always bigger than any individual gain. The concept of abundance can sometimes be a trap where people believe that the more they have, the more fulfilled they'll be. But Jesus taught that true fulfillment comes from giving, not accumulating. In fact, when we sacrifice our time, our resources, and our energy for a purpose greater than ourselves, we often find that we receive more in return, more meaning, more connection, more purpose. Elon's words now feel like a personal confession as he reflects on the deeper meaning of his work. It's the same reason I've dedicated my life to projects that I believe can change the world, whether it's through sustainable energy, space exploration, or developing technologies that improve people's lives. There's a bigger mission at play, and the more we understand that, the more we align with the teachings that have guided humanity for centuries. The audience falls silent as Musk begins to speak with even more passion. Perhaps the most powerful and enduring message of Jesus is love. Love is the ultimate driving force that can move mountains, inspire revolutions, and change the course of history. Jesus didn't just preach love, he lived it. He showed us that love isn't just an emotion. It's an action. It's something we choose to do every day, even when it's difficult. In a world that often feels divided by politics, by race, by wealth, love is what can bring us back together. As we move into a future where technology could either deepen these divides or help heal them, we have to ask ourselves, are we using our knowledge, our innovations, and our power to foster love and unity, or are we doing the opposite? At SpaceX, the dream is to make life multiplanetary. But what's the point of reaching the stars if we can't even love each other here on Earth? The technology we create should always be in service of love for our planet, love for humanity, and love for future generations. Love doesn't mean that everything will be easier, that we won't face challenges. In fact, the challenges are what make love so powerful. When we choose to act with love, even in the face of adversity, we're following in the footsteps of the greatest leaders in history, and that includes Jesus. Elon Musk stands tall, looking out at the audience with a renewed sense of purpose. So what does all this mean for the future of humanity? I believe it means that as we continue to innovate, to explore, and to push the boundaries of what's possible, we must also stay grounded in the lessons of the past. Jesus' life and teachings remind us that progress is not just about advancing technology, it's about advancing the human spirit. It's about creating a world where love, justice, compassion, and services are at the core of everything we do. As whether we're building rockets to Mars, designing AI, or simply interacting with one another, these principles should guide us. The future is bright, but it's up to us to make sure it's a future worth living in. It's up to us to ensure that the innovations we create are used for good, that they help lift people up rather than tear them down. And it's up to us to remember that at the end of the day, we are all part of the same story, the story of humanity. Jesus' message of love, sacrifice, and hope is relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. And if we can carry that message forward into the future, then I truly believe we can achieve great things, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. As Elon Musk finishes her reflections, the room is filled with a profound silence. The audience knows they've just witnessed something special, a conversation that transcends the boundaries of faith, science, and philosophy, and speaks to the very heart of what it means to be human. Thank you so much for watching this story. I hope it has inspired you and left you with a deeper sense of reflection and purpose. Stories like these remind us of the timeless lessons of compassion, love, and sacrifice that can guide us in our everyday lives. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Velvet Sovereigns. By subscribing, you'll ensure you won't miss out on more meaningful, thought-provoking, and uplifting stories that we're excited to share with you. Stay tuned for even better, more inspiring content coming your way. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and we'll see you in the next video.